and what I decided is it just comes down to their own experiences. Maybe their mother didn't work, or maybe their sister left her job when she got pregnant. But that's great. And I can totally, I'm so in love with my daughter. I can see how people do that, but has never been my mentality. Running my business makes me a better mother. Being a mother has already made me better at my business. So I think it's just very silly and ignorant if anyone has a problem with a pregnant female founder or a female founder that has kids. And so I think when you're doing anything different, there's always going to be pushback and resistance.
Our guest today began experimenting with real food recipes that led to her own health transformation, and she decided to share her passion with the world. She first opened Made with Love Wellness, a plant-based cafe in Southern California, where she started selling proprietary formulas of plant-based milks and juices. The response was so great, yet her audience was limited, so she decided to spread the goodness globally. Welcome to the show, founder and CEO of Goodmylk Co., a game-changing, industry-disrupting plant-based milk, my friend, Brooke Harris.
Thank you, Mike. So great to be here.
And guys, thank you for being with us here. If you're tuning in on YouTube or you're listening on Apple or Spotify, your favorite podcast app. But Brooke and I just want to let you guys know, we haven't seen each other in 14 years, although, we've connected on social media. But we're buddies way back to our Buff State days. So this is like super exciting to have you on the show.
Yeah, Mike saved my butt in editing some projects for me.
I mean, you edited the projects with my supervision, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what I meant.
Did I really? I don't remember that. Tell me real quick. What was that? Did we do something with like Pulp Fiction or something?
Fiction
I remember.
One. Yeah.
That was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that. And then I remember you telling me you should stick to this editing thing. I think you're really good at editing like trailers and stuff. And now I do it for podcasts.
Yes.
And I get people pay me to do it, which is even
meant to be
more fun. So yeah, I wanted to shout that out because we go back 14 years. You were a bartender at Trattoria Aroma on Bryant Street in Buffalo. Give them a shout out quick. Do you remember I used to come visit you after school? You'd be bartending, and I'd pop up to I always called it Aroma, but Trattoria Aroma. Do you remember my go-to order every time?
I feel like, was it something like Chardonnay?
No, you introduced me to Prosecco.
Champagne was gonna be my second thing. Yes. I knew it was a little bit girly, but no shame. Like Prosecco is.
That was your favorite drink, and I think you just you poured yourself some, and then you're like, here. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like my family we always were a champagne family, and I'm like, you kind of were like, you don't know Prosecco. I'm like, now I do. I have to be cool like Brooke. I have to figure this out. Yeah, and then it was the Bianca pizza. Yeah, I was probably, you guys saw me coming in, and the chef probably just started rocking and rolling with that.
Their food is so good. Those pizzas are so good. That was it was a fun place to work, and it was cool. It exposed me to a lot of really great wine and food, and really was an educational experience.
Yeah. We're going to talk a lot about food, guys, on the show. It's an educational topic, obviously. We're talking about plant-based, healthy foods. But I want you to know this. I don't know if you realize this, Brooke, but or at the time at least, I remember one time I don't know where we were going or whatever, but we were walking somewhere around that area, Elmwood, Buffalo area, and there was a local grocery store. You probably would remember it. It was like a health food. At least we were in the health department or section of it, and you were getting almond milk or oat milk at the time, and it was the first time that I learned that there was an alternative to cow's milk. This is 14 years ago. It wasn't the hip thing to do yet, at least in Buffalo. Not too many people knew there was an alternative yet, and I felt like I was an alien just dropped in on a different planet. And I just wanted to tell you today I'm actually 100% plant-based and drink almond milk only.
What?
So
I had no idea. I love that.
You planted the seed. I'm not saying, I didn't make the transition for years, but you planted that seed. And then when I kind of got wise, it takes me a little time to catch up, But once I finally caught up and realized the importance of it, and I actually there's a book out called Skinny Bitch, but there's a guy version called Skinny Bastard. Did you ever read it?
No, I've read the girl version. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Skinny Bitch is like the more popular one, but they, and I remember reading that and just learning about how gross and disgusting it is, not only just from a it's horrible, obviously, from an animal cruelty thing, but it's also just simply not even good for our bodies. And I know that could turn a lot of people off listening. And please just stick with us and hear us out. That's all I'm asking. If somebody has a strong opinion about eating meat, hey, that's cool. Stick with us and hear our side of the story.
Yeah, and I will tell you that I am while I'm plant-based, I'm actually pro real food. So I don't think all plant-based foods are better. I grew up on a dairy farm. Like there's a lot of layers to my philosophy about food, but what it comes down to is eating the food that's best for you and your body and makes you feel your best.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot about that, like the whole food side of it. And I'm still not super well versed in all of that, so I want to learn about that. And one thing that I thought was kind of interesting when I was researching Goodmylk, which, guys, if you're listening in and you're wondering what the brand is, it's Good Milk, all together, one word, and milk has a Y for the I. Goodmylk Co. And all of the links and social media for that are clickable in the show notes. You don't have to worry about typing it in or anything. Just go to the show notes and click on it. But when I was researching it, Brooke, I noticed that, like, surprisingly, your vision did not get as much love as you anticipated, like right out of the gates. I remember there's a story about it being kind of tough to sell investors in the beginning and industry insiders. Like, why do you think there was that skepticism on it? And then, like, how did you overcome that in the beginning?
There's been kind of these equal paths going at the same time where it's been difficult to talk about what we're doing with people who've been in the industry for a long time. But then we have customers who really get it and love it and understand the need for what we're doing. And so I think when you're doing anything different, there's always going to be pushback and resistance.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard. But if you're clear on the path and the whys and the mission, there's just a vision that you can see beyond what maybe some people who've been in the industry for a long time can. And there's a very specific method to making alternative milks and specific packaging, ways they're put out. Like everything's kind of the same. If you go into the grocery store and you look in the alternative milk aisle, you'll see like, cool, these all kind of even look the same. They might have different names, or different logos on the package, but they're all kind of the same. And we're coming in doing something incredibly different with our formats, our product, where it gets put in grocery stores, the mission behind what we're doing, and kind of calling out other plant-based milks. And so you're always going to, when you're doing something different, there's always going to be some boats that you rock. But I think for the long term, it will benefit us. And definitely we're seeing customers really excited about what we're doing.
Was there an aha moment where you felt like finally people get it? Like not an aha for you, but almost like, oh, you finally understand now. Aha, now they're bought in more.
Yeah, I think those are happening every day, right? We are kind of the first in this new wave of plant-based food, and we're the first plant-based dairy company really pushing forward this new wave of, it can't just be plant-based. That's not good enough. It has to be real food ingredients. It has to have nutritional value. It has to taste and work really well. Like, so, and it has to be sustainable and eco-friendly. And like the things that you like want to value in the plant-based world, you have to be doing all of that. Because if you're, a lot of these plant-based milks out there, if you're getting something that's non-organic, sure, you're saving, there's some sustainability piece from not having dairy, but then you're, disrupting the community, the air quality, the water quality, the farmers and their families' lives by not doing organic. So there's a lot of layers to.
And a lot of times too, not to interrupt you, Brooke, but like, I think a lot of times it's just ignorance in the fact of people don't know any better. So it's not like they're choosing ignorance. They're just don't know any better. Like me 14 years ago had no clue. Now I'm getting better and I'm doing more research. But even with myself, recently I was going to buy almond milk and I was checking on a few different brands. And I think it was also in preparing for this interview when we first originally were planning to do this. And I remember seeing that some almond milks have like a gum ingredient or some kind of preservative ingredient, which would not be what you're talking about. You're talking about only real product, right? Like when we say real, we're talking about coming from almonds, for example, and not adding in. So what are some of those things we should look for on the side of the bottle?
Yeah. So you will see pretty much, name the brand, pick it up from the shelf, and you'll see when you flip over the carton, there is a bunch of weird ingredients. Lecithins, gums, binders, preservatives, fillers, artificial flavoring. And what you'll also notice, especially with almond milk, I mean, you can talk about any of them, but let's talk plant-based people know that nuts have a lot of protein and fat, right? We're kind of trained in that. Like that's where you get your protein. When you pick up a box of any other brand of almond milk, you'll see that there's 1 gram of protein per serving, which means there's 2 to 3 almonds per cup of that in that almond milk.
So then what else is in there? There's like just
chemicals.
yeah, like 90% chemicals then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now when people are like, all right, Brooke, we want Goodmylk, and you have your website, again, that's clickable. I live in Buffalo, as you know. Is it something I can order online and get it shipped?
Yeah. Anywhere in the US other than Hawaii, unfortunately. But anywhere in the US, you can get it shipped to your door. So, and we have 2 formats. We have a frozen format, and then we have our powders, which are creamers, and all along the same guidelines of best quality, cleanest ingredients, best tasting, best performing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I'm your next customer. Like I'm getting off of this call and I'm going to order, I'm going to stock up. I'm going to get whatever it is, like a month's supply of Goodmylk, because I know I drink it every day. I make my first thing I do in the morning is my fruit smoothie, banana, strawberry, blueberries, my mix. And then I have a protein shake that was recommended from my dietitian. So, and I use almond milk right now, but I could not tell you that the brand I use doesn't have the gums and stuff in it. I got to double check now. You got me thinking.
Well, and that's the big motivator, right? We didn't create a better for you cookie or a better for you chip that you're maybe having like once a week or once a month as a treat. This is something just like you just said, you're having it in your smoothie every single morning. It's something people are consuming every day. They're having it first thing in the morning. They're feeding it to their kids. Some people are giving their babies whole bottles full of almond milk. And it's not something that you can afford to have be detrimental to your health.
Yeah, like you shouldn't take it lightly. Like it's just, we're giving it to our kids. Like if, you want to make sure it's good for them.
Scoop some water out of the puddle in your backyard to like have a glass of water,
Although, hey, back, we're 80s kids, but more like a decade probably before us and a little bit into the 80s. Kids were like the drinking from the hose kind of thing on a hot summer day. Like we did kind of grow up with some sketchy stuff that I wouldn't let my daughter do today. But you also do something called flash blast freezing. It's a technique. Can you share? Is that something you could talk about?
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. So
what does that mean?
In order to preserve our products, so basically what we are doing is we're scaling homemade plant-based milks. And I don't know if you knew that you could make them homemade yourself.
No.
It's a huge pain in the butt.
I'd rather you do it and I'll just buy it.
It's a huge pain in the butt, and it actually ends up costing more money than buying our products. And that's what kind of led me to make these products, want to make a scalable.
Were you doing it yourself first? And you're like, well, this kind of takes a lot. People are not going to want to do this at home.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And so we're the first to scale homemade quality plant-based milks. And so it comes, in order to figure out how to preserve it without using chemicals, we decided to look at the oldest preservation technology out there, which is freezing. So our product comes in a concentrated form in these really cute little packets, and it's blast frozen. And we blast freeze it, which really means, it's the special equipment we have that drops it to freezing really, really quick. And that's because proteins and fats need to be frozen really fast. Otherwise, they'll get some weird ice crystals, or the protein and fat can separate from the water and make it just not pretty. You've had like ice cream before that has a bunch of ice crystals on it. It's not.
Yeah. So you have a limited time to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to drop the temperature really quick and freeze it really quickly in order to maintain literally when you thought it is exactly as we made it fresh, and it tastes like fresh homemade milk.
Did you learn that like trial and error, or was that research that was already done?
Oh my God. So much trial and error. I thought of the freezing thing, and then a friend mentioned blast freezing, and I just went down this rabbit hole of literally Google research. And I had a girlfriend here in LA who had a coconut cream ice cream shop, amazing ice cream. And she had a tiny little blast freezer that they'd have to like throw the ice cream pan in for a few minutes before they put it out in their display. And so she would let me come in after hours and test the blast freezing. And I would literally take, packets of coconut water, drink those, and then fill it with the milk and blast freeze it to see what would happen.
Yeah. And then once you're like, hey, we got it. We could take the notes down. Let's replicate success, right?
Yeah. And that's when we had to fundraise, because now we're talking about real commercial equipment and commercial packaging that you have to buy, in tens of thousands of units at a time. And so we basically fundraised with this idea that I had only tested in the improper containers in my friend's blast freezer.
Hey, whatever it takes, that's how you figured it out. And that's really
Yeah.
cool. I have so much respect for you because I knew that it was always in your heart, right? You always had this desire you really cared about what you put into your body. I always respected that. And I didn't know that you would have your own company or that you'd turn it into it. But once I found that out, I was not surprised at all. I'm like, she's doing what she loves. She's sharing it with the world. And then you didn't stop there. You weren't just like, we have a healthy product that I'd like, I feel comfortable putting into my body. You perfected it. And you went down into the scientific, like mad scientists in your lab to make it absolutely perfect. So when you got it to market, it was as good as the stuff you were making yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't cut any corners. I have a ton of respect for that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually take a quick time out with Brooke. We'll be right back. We're going to hit 2 sponsors. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Brooke Harris. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Brooke Harris. You guys can connect with her on social media. All those links are clickable in the show notes, making it always super easy to connect. We're going to dive right back into some questions here. So, Brooke, let's imagine this. We hop in the DeLorean. We're cruising around Bryant Street back in the day, but we go even further back than 14 years. We go all the way back to you as 12-year-old Brooke. So tell us about that little girl with a dream, right? I want to know what kind of things you were thinking about, because that's kind of the age, middle school, and you're kind of thinking about like what you're going to do when you grow up, right? So did you think you'd become a successful entrepreneur, or like you're a happy mom now and a wife? Like, what was your vision for yourself back then?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was then. I grew up, in a really small town, and I think that the coveted jobs then
Did
were.
you grow up in Napa Valley?
No,
Was it Napa?
I actually spent most of my childhood in a really small town in New York State.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, in my younger years, I spent most of my time in New York State. Again, my grandparents had a dairy farm, but the coveted jobs, then were and still are, but teacher, doctor, lawyer were the things that were being talked about. And my first, and I don't remember what age, it was definitely younger than 12, but I remember sitting in a class where we had to draw a picture of what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I drew a picture of wanting to be a supermodel. So I don't know where that came from, but I do know that by the look on my teacher's face, it was like not a good thing. I do remember that moment. And then I was like, okay, well, if that's not good, maybe I'll be an astronaut.
Yeah.
So
You were already dreaming big. I think that's terrible that when you said supermodel, they were like, no way. Like, what's wrong with that?
I mean, maybe I was a weird looking kid. I don't know. There's no way.
Sorry, Miss whoever. Like, maybe your dreams were squashed, but Brooke be Brooke.
But then, at age 12 is actually when I became a vegetarian. And that was because I loved animals so much. I was
age 10?
Age 12.
12. Okay.
I knew nothing about health and wellness then, but I loved animals so much and was really lucky to grow up around a lot of them, cows and horses and kittens and dogs, and I had a hamster and, all the furry things. And so that's when I stopped eating meat, when I realized like it was from the heart. Like, I do not want to hurt animals. The journey to understanding the wellness aspects of it definitely came years later, but was definitely like a very weird thing. Like, my family hunts. Like, again, we had a dairy farm. Like, I was definitely the outlier in my.
You were a little bit of the, no pun intended, but the black sheep on the farm.
Yeah, no,
the family. I didn't know if maybe there was a parent, aunt, and uncle, someone who kind of dropped that little, like how you planted that seed in my heart to eventually research it more. So you kind of had to come across it yourself. I'm sure being on the dairy farm with all the animals put you right in front of it. Like, you got to see it firsthand.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you actually know this, but I actually went to college in San Francisco my freshman year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that year for a class, I can't remember what class it was, but we had to write like a long research paper. And my paper was, I wrote about how much better soy milk is than dairy milk. And that was when soy milk was like, I think it was the only option, maybe rice milk, but soy milk was all the rage. And so I wrote this 20-page paper on how awful dairy was and how everyone should switch to soy milk, essentially. And I shared it with my mother, and she was like, do not ever tell your grandfather you wrote this. My grandfather was a third-generation dairy farmer, But there's a difference between the way that my grandfather was doing dairy back in the day and the way it's done now, or the way dairy is mass produced. So again, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, I'm not anti-dairy. You actually won't see much conversations on Goodmylk that are anti-dairy. We are really battling these plant-based milks that are putting themselves out there saying that they're something that they're not, and making people sick.
That's huge. Yeah, you got to get educated, because you may be thinking you're being sold something and it's really just to profit, where you're actually, the name Goodmylk is what you think it is. It's actually good for you, and it's good for your body, but it's also, you feel good about it because it's holistic and organic, and it's not created just as a catchy, okay, we're gonna get your dollar because we know you want an alternative. We're actually providing you what you're looking to pay for, and you've done your research, and so I think that, obviously, like I said, it's commendable. But I think that's a really interesting story that I didn't know about you. I knew you grew up. I remember Napa because anytime someone said California to me back in the day, my ears perked up, because my uncle moved from Buffalo to LA, and I always had a love for California. Actually, as we record this, the Red Hot Chili Peppers just got their star on the Boulevard. They got their Hollywood Boulevard.
That. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought they already had one, but I know they went in the Hall of Fame a few years ago, but they just got their star. So California's always been in my heart. So when you mentioned Napa, that stuck with me, but I didn't know the thing about San Fran. Maybe you didn't mention it. And then the dairy farming thing in New York, that's news to me. So I think it's crazy because, of course, you had to kind of go against your family's ways. And again, that is it's not easy to like kind of challenge generations. And that's really, I think, like, that you were made, this is all part of your journey, your story. I think it's really cool. And I want anyone who's listening to this to say, hey, I could do either this myself or in a different way, whatever your calling is. Brooke's calling was to develop something to make the world a better place. She picked milk. That happened to be her thing. But I'm just talking to the whole audience right here. What's your thing that you can, we don't know our end date on this planet, but we know our start date, and we don't know our end date, but we want to leave this planet better than it found us. And you're doing your part big time. So I
Thank
just
you.
want to say thank you for that.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. That's a really cool thing. So yeah, I think, when you're 12, you don't know, but you, in a sense, your heart was already turning in the right direction, which is really cool. Who would you say are some of your early influences then, like to get you into business? Did someone inspire you, maybe from afar that you were reading about or Googling back in the day and saying like, hey, I really did, like someone that inspired you to get into business?
Well, I would say there's a few directions to that answer. I would say one, I didn't sit down one day and say, I'm going to start a business. Here's my 5-year business plan. I kind of stumbled into this in just wanting to serve. Like, I found something that worked and was really good and inspired me, and I just wanted to share it with my local community. So I started my business at the farmers market. Very small time, like I said, servicing the local community. And when I saw the reactions to our products, realized this is bigger than a local thing. And actually, I'm in LA where people have access to a lot of food and a lot of plant-based foods. I need to get this out to everyone so that people in other places who don't have as easy access can have Goodmylk. So, it was really me learning from my customers that, hey, this is something that could be big. It's something that people are interested in. It's something that's necessary, and just kind of stumbling along the path and saying yes to a lot of things. Dropping fear and just like being curious and figuring things out, and all of a sudden, it's a business.
Yeah, that's cool. You weren't solving for I'm sure you wanted to, make money doing what you're doing because you had to put a roof over your head and all that, but that wasn't like you didn't start with this, I want to create $1 million or $1 billion business and like reverse engineer it. You started with a passion that was really burning in your heart, and you were like, I want to turn this into something. Hey, this actually looks like it can be a business and helping people. And then eventually it became a product, not only a service, but a product that could be shipped, which is really cool. And I think that's important because you're in LA where there's a lot of people that are mindful about health. It's kind of like, I feel like the vegan capital of the world. And maybe that's changed, but at least that's how it feels being from,
I would
Western
agree.
New
Yeah.
York.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are like health conscious and forward thinking. Like you don't have to tell them an alternative idea and take long for them to appreciate it as much as you do kind of on this side of the country, right? So you're in a place where there's a lot of people thinking like that, which is cool. But I love that you said, well, we're creating something for people who don't have that, like someone in the middle of Kansas or
Yeah.
Buffalo or, Florida or wherever, just different places where maybe it's not the topic that is as well accepted. And someone's like kind of feels like they're stuck, and they don't have as many options, or the only options at their grocery store are the ones with the 18 ingredients and almonds, the last one in their almond milk. And they're like, this isn't even what I want. Well, now you have something that can get out to them, which I think is really cool. So yeah, you don't always have to have that role model who's like taking you along, whether it's virtually now watching YouTube videos and social media. You kind of what led you was your heart. You definitely followed your heart through this whole process. I could tell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that, it was at a time too where you weren't on social media as much. Like Instagram wasn't such a thing. I don't even know if like Facebook had the phone app yet. So, there weren't a ton of places to look around to, which might have almost been a good thing. Like I just had to put my head down and follow the path that was in front of me. But when I came out to LA, I had worked kind of in startup. So I'd worked for a few different startups in film and not in film. And I knew from those experiences that I could get a business to a certain place. I was like, okay, I've basically started with a few different companies from day one and been a really important piece of like building out their early operations. So I knew I could get a business to a certain place. And I think that gave me the confidence to like take the leap for myself as well. And I also knew too that when I was going to do it, I needed to go all in. I didn't have it. I like left a job to start my business.
Yeah, you originally went out back to LA for your passion for film, which is what we were going to school for at Buff
Yeah.
State. I don't think I told that part in the story. We were studying media production. So you went out there originally to work in film, and our shout out to our friend Scott, who's out there, and I think he's writing, right? He became a writer for NCIS, I think.
Yeah, he wrote
Is that
a
true?
couple of their
Yeah.
best episodes, in my opinion.
Yeah. So there you go. Shout out to Scott Jarrett. Much love. And then from there you were kind of in the media thing and the film thing, but then you're like you've continued to follow your heart again, and it got you into this. And you always had you were always organized. I mean, I didn't know you that well back in our college days, but I could tell that, like, if you wanted to figure it out, Brooke's going to figure it out. You know, you weren't going to just let things unturned. You always were really, like, calculated, and that is a big important part of being a business owner. Is like the idea guy, kind of like myself, can get in trouble. We're like a bull in a china shop sometimes, but you have to sit down, turn your ideas into a calculated plan, and that's where you excel as well. So you got the heart part of it, you got the game planning part of it, and the execution part. Really, really, like the three legs of the stool.
I would counter that by saying, yes, you're right, but only when it's something I'm passionate about and motivated to push forward. When I'm excited about it and, have a vision, like I absolutely will do anything it takes to push it forward. But when it's not, aligned with my values or not something I'm excited about, it's like the procrastination thing. I don't want anything to do with it. And that's where, when we come to a crossroads in the business of making decisions, that's my end barrier of, am I excited about this? Is this decision something that adds to me waking up every day and running this business? And if it does, great, that's the direction we go. If it doesn't, then we don't go that direction.
Yeah, I think that's super important for anyone listening or tuning in. Like, the same thing for anyone. Like, if it's not passionate, it's like a homework assignment then. I remember reading. I hated reading. I wouldn't even read Dr. Seuss when I was a kid. I just hated reading. I wasn't good at reading
Wild.
comprehension. But when I was like 15, I read, funny enough, the Chili Peppers, Anthony Kiedis, the lead singer, wrote a book called Scar
Yeah.
Tissue. And it's a pretty good book. And it's like his entire life story up until that time around, like, this is like college. It's around that same time, like 15, 18 years old, I think I was. And like my high school years. And I read every page of that book. And I think it only took me like a week or two to get through it. And I read it intently
Yeah.
because I cared about it. So when you have something you care about, just like I do with Social Chameleon and this podcast, Mike Up, like, there's nothing that gets in the way of it because we go in, we're all in. So it's important, certainly, for young entrepreneurs tuning in right now. If you're not, like, before you're ready to go and die on your own hill here, like, for whatever it is that your cause is, like, if you don't know that you're 150% bought in on it, it's going to be hard when you're 150% bought in. But if you're like 65, 92%, you're going to have a lot more problems because it's going to take an unreasonable amount of pushback, of push forward to get through it.
Oh, it's insane. And I love that advice. And it's advice that I give all the time. Is like, if this is not like meant to be your mission in life and you're not so passionate about it, don't do it. Especially if like money's
Exactly.
the motivator. When you have it's a roller coaster. And when you're on the lower pieces of that roller coaster, there's no amount of money that's going to be worth it. Like,
Yeah.
it is something you have to be so passionate about and be so in love with that's what pushes you through.
Yeah. Yeah. I always go back to sports analogies and stuff. It's like, if you lose a few games, is your love for the game gone, or do you still love playing the game, even if you're on a
Right.
losing team? To
I
the
like
fact
that.
of then the next year, the pieces start to get a little bit better, and then eventually 3-4 years in, you win a Super Bowl. But if you gave up in your first year in the league because you were on kind of a stinky team, like, how passionate was that player if he was just kind of only
Spoken like a
raising
Bills
his
fan.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely true. But look, we've, as Bills fans, we've been through 25 horrendous years, and now we get to enjoy some postseason action and having a star quarterback in the league. But like, we didn't waver. We were in the 7 and 9 seasons. We were still buying seats. We were still going to the game. So I actually want to go back. Something that hit me about 10 minutes ago in conversation or so. We're talking about vegan, and you were 12 when you made that decision. My daughter is 7, but the problem that I'm having, and I'm not trying to force it on her because I'm vegan myself. I'm not trying to force it on her. But the tough part is, see, I got divorced when she was 2. So now the co-parenting thing, my ex-wife, who my daughter lives with 5, days out of the week, and it's every other weekend, so it's even more than that now. But she's influenced by her and what she's cooking and what they're going out to a restaurant. So it's tough for me. She kind of looks at me like an outsider, like, how come daddy doesn't eat meat? Or if we go, get a cheeseburger and he's kind of just orders something else, French fries or something, what's the scoop? And I haven't had the conversation of like the animal cruelty thing. I don't want to put
Yeah.
things into her head like that. But it's tough. But can you talk to maybe the parents out there that are having a similar struggle to me? Like, you want your kids to know, but it's a gruesome conversation. And how do you have it? Is there a way can you kind of talk since you lived it?
Yeah, well, I'll be really living it from the parent aspect, right? And not yet. My little one's only 6 months old, but in thinking about being the one introducing foods to her, my husband is not plant based.
Congratulations, by the way. That's my moment. I
Thank
said it
you.
off camera, but on camera, congratulations on becoming a mom. Cheers to you.
Thank you.
You have the cutest little daughter.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud of her. I think one, really being clear on why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that is the wellness piece. And I do want to say that I don't believe that every person should be plant-based. I believe that all of our bodies are different. We need different things at different times in our lives. And I believe that where we can win is understanding what's best for our body and then understanding what we're putting into our body and how that impacts us. So I think if you can start to have those conversations with your daughter about, oh, you just had a cheeseburger or chicken fingers, whatever it is, how does that make you feel? And then maybe introducing her when she's with you, having some healthier plant-based foods that do make her feel really good. And, just start to have the conversation of like, oh, is there a difference in how you feel when you have different foods? I think is a really good approach. And then it's, you don't have to talk about the gruesome part of it. And you're setting your kid up for success in the future. It doesn't feel restrictive. It feels like, hey, I'm doing this because I want to feel good. I want to be the best version of me. And then there's all these other layers they can learn about down the line. But teaching your kid about health, food, wellness early on, like that's a big thing that a lot of people as adults struggle with and takes up a lot of their brain space, takes away years in people's lives. Like there's a lot of layers to that. And I think the sooner you can teach
My dad
them
had colon cancer, and that's huge in red meat, right? I mean,
yeah,
like that was the thing that got me really thinking about it. And, I ate a lot of red meat growing up because it was always what we had in the
yeah,
house. And,
yeah.
and we would always have meatballs with our pasta, and we'd always have spare ribs and burgers a couple nights a week. And I just thought to myself, like the thing that you just said is how it makes you feel. And I've had a ton and this is personal, but I'm very transparent on my show, a ton of stomach issues over the years. Actually,
Mhm.
one of the main reasons I don't have dairy is because I cannot digest dairy very
Yeah.
well. My dietitian just in the last 24 months, like solved a lot of problems for me. And I lost some weight with it as well, but I just feel really, really good. And I've been healthy for the most part. I recently had a health scare last week, but other than that, I've been like feeling my best. And it's because I haven't put those foods into my system that kind of bogged me down. But I think it's really cool that you're like, hey, let everybody make their decision. I'm not out here saying if you hunt, you're horrible. If you buy meat that's, an animal that's killed by something else, like that's I totally respect that that's your approach on it. I always would say to someone like I can appreciate a hunter more so than anything else because at least if they're hunting to eat their that venison, if it's deer or whatever, I can respect that. That's
Yeah.
kind of like old school, like you're out hunting for the family, like you're providing. Fine, I get it. But I still have a big problem with like the big corporate like massacring that's going on. And I've seen some crazy stuff that I don't even remember what company it was, but there was this weird thing where they were like taking puppies and testing cigarette filters, putting these like cones on the dogs' heads and forcing them down to smoke to see which brand was worse or whatever. And then like obviously the puppies would either die or have a bunch of like cancerous outcomes. And they're just like, oh, I guess this is the brand we're gonna go with, and it's like
Yeah, I mean,
ridiculous.
there's a special place in hell for people that do that kind of stuff. Like that's
Yeah.
just hard to wrap your brain around. But, I think our mission as a company obviously is to provide this great product and this great brand and great platform, but it's to really get people thinking and understanding about the impact of the most important thing you do every day, which is feed yourself and understand how your own body works. On my journey, I spent 2 years going to different doctors, and they all had a different answer or a different reason or had no answer. And at the end of the day, it was, adjusting my diet. And I was plant-based then. It was the plant-based foods I was eating that were making me sick. So the most important thing we do every day is feed ourselves. And yet we're so removed from understanding what that food actually is that we're putting into our bodies. And so I think if we can start to just get people to think about that a little bit more, that's where I feel like we're doing a good job and we've been successful. Because it really is it's so unempowering when you go through this journey of being sick and realize, wow, all I had to do was change my diet. And I never even thought of that or looked at it or understood the impact of that.
Yeah, that's huge. And a lot of times, like I said, it's what you grow up and you don't know what you don't know. So you kind of just inherit what your family would put on the dinner
Yeah.
table. And then you become a parent and then you kind of do the same thing because it's what you know and you're comfortable with. So again, it's like challenging, get those answers, figure out what works for you. And then, uh, learn, adapt, and grow. Like you make changes over time. You were plant based, and that still wasn't the solution because the
Right.
things you were eating
Right.
had certain ingredients that were making you sick. So, like, just saying, okay, I'm eating healthier now, quote unquote, because it says on the packaging that it's healthier. That's not the end all be all. You have to know what you're actually eating, which is super important.
Yeah. Not all
Yeah.
plant-based foods or plant-based diets are created equal. You could be plant-based and eat, tortilla chips and salsa every day. And, I'm pretty sure that you'd still be plant-based, but wouldn't really be feeling your best at the end of it. So it's about
Yeah.
learning about what foods actually are good for you, what fuel you, what works for your body.
Stay out of my cupboard, okay? Stay out of my cupboard. All right. I got some salsa and chips in there. That is
Oh,
a
and
go-to
they're
snack.
fine. I do not believe in restriction. My husband will tell you we eat pizza every Friday night, homemade pizza.
Okay.
I love cake. Like I'm a big dessert
Yeah.
person. We eat chips and salsa, especially when we go on vacation in Mexico. It's basically the only thing we eat: chips and salsa
Sure.
and guacamole. But it's about the quality. And in 2022, there are these best for you versions of every treat or vice that you could want, and it's just like about seeking those out and have your chips and cookies and cake, and limit it,
Yeah.
but
Balance.
understand that there are good versions of them out there. I went through a phase where I had cake 4 times a week, but it was a, gluten-free, refined sugar-free, all of the freeze, organic slices
Hmm.
of cake. And I felt really good after I would eat it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing that gets me is gluten. So I'm gluten-free, plant-based right now. It's not so easy going to the grocery store, but it does make a big difference because when after eating, you shouldn't feel like you're like crawling, like you're
Yeah.
lethargic. You should feel energized, right? And if you're not, go see a dietitian, figure out what's wrong and do that. Something I if I talked to you for an hour and we didn't have this conversation, it would be a big miss on my part. You are a new mom. You have a beautiful daughter, beautiful family, and you're also an entrepreneur. You have a successful company now for a few years. There's entrepreneurs tuning in that are already up and moving. They're moms, they're dads. And there's some people that are thinking about starting a company that are moms and dads. And the toughest thing as an entrepreneur is the balance of all the madness. How have you transitioned into that to still make sure the company is being taken care of and that Bowie's taken care of and your family is everyone's taken care of?
Yeah, it has been a transition. That's definitely the word I would use. I went from working from 8:30 in the morning to 8:30 at night to I have to be done with work by 5:30. And if it didn't get done by 5:30, there's no way it's going to get done until the next day. So you just become way more efficient. I also have built my company to a place where I have a team, and I have a team that is really great. And so I've learned to delegate to to the team, and also trust them. There are, I had a phase in my company where everything had to run through me. I had to have eyes on everything, needed to know every little bit of what was going on. And I don't need that anymore. And actually, I tell my team, don't CC me on emails anymore, or you go ahead and make that decision and just let me know, what the decision is, and let me know the follow-up. So that's been huge, just being able to let go of some stuff and delegate. And that also helps me do the stuff I'm most effective at for the business. And it helps me, I'm still working on the balance thing. I'm only 6 months in, but it definitely quickly forces you to be way more efficient.
Yeah. I think it's important as you grow as a company, you continue to put those steps on the ladder, right? So you have another different people so you can climb to higher heights. It's hard to do it all it's impossible to really get to where you want to go with a company by yourself, typically, if you're looking to build an international brand.
Yeah. And we're at a phase too. I've learned a lot, about hires and hiring, and made some big mistakes and made some great choices. But we're at a place now too where if someone's not pulling their weight on the team, or if I have someone on my team that I don't trust to delegate to, they're not on our team anymore. They don't belong. You have to have a great team all pulling in the same direction. And I'm very lucky to have that.
Yeah, I forget exactly who I was talking to recently. Leadership is a topic that comes up on Mike DiCioccio quite a bit. And I think it was actually an interview that we were producing for a client. And the woman talking, it was Tracy Jones. It's coming back to me now, Dr. Tracy Jones. And she was talking about leadership, and her dad is the infamous, they call him Tremendous Charlie Jones. That was his nickname. And she was talking about leadership is important, but you have to have in an organization people who truly care and they want to put their best foot forward and they actually put in the work. Because you could be a great leader, but if everybody on the team is just looking to cut corners, the great leader is still doing the things right.
Yeah.
But without the right puzzle pieces, everybody comes in collective. So like you said, if somebody wasn't pulling their weight, you had to eventually get rid of them. And it's a tough thing as a business owner to do that. But that old saying of you're only as strong as your weakest link is absolutely true. Because if your best client has an interaction with the weakest link and now you lose your best client, that's horrible, So you have to make sure the experience is the same through everybody in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the transition from founder to CEO is, just because you have this vision and can create something doesn't mean that translates to CEO. And for me, it was, it's just kind of expected in the business world. If you're the founder, you're the CEO, especially at this stage. And I want to be vocal about the fact that it's a transition and it's not perfect. And there's a lot of learning that goes on along the way, the transition to CEO. Yeah. And I don't even know that I'm necessarily there yet, but I think there's this silly expectation that is just unrealistic that if you founded a company, then you should be the CEO.
Yeah, I'm realizing that too. I don't know that that's even for me, I'm more of the ideas person, the execution, really in the seat of understanding what I want every client experience to be like. I think if I had a title, it would be client experience director or something.
Yeah.
What someone feels and experiences and what we're all about. Maybe that is the CEO, the visionary of the company is usually the CEO. But as far as being instrumental and organized and stuff, I just haven't been that person. I still have Mike the drummer in me. I'm the guy who just shows up at the gig. Are we on now, dude? There's that side of me that still lives in my heart, and it's hard for me to be I'm very good with getting things done by client deadlines. I don't want anyone to take that out of context. But as far as calculating a general in the Army has to calculate this massive plan, and they need to articulate it 0.5% of a degree off, and you're right. Missing the mark. I don't know that that's me. I think there's somebody who maybe has more business savvy that should be in that role. To me, I'm probably the VP of sales, or like I said, the visionary of that customer client relations. So it's important, anyone tuning in, again, listen to Brooke, that transition's not easy, but it doesn't mean that just because you started your company that you need to be the CEO. At some point, hire someone, put them in the driver's seat. You still are
And then you
in
can thrive at
lockstep with
whatever
them.
you want to do,
Thrive it. Yeah, maybe you're like, you love distribution. Maybe that's just like your baby. And you live in that land while
Yeah,
someone's running the behind the scenes part. Like, it's so important to realize, like, sometimes the biggest mistake we can make is getting in our own way. And
absolutely.
you're
Yeah,
saying, like,
love that.
don't sabotage yourself. Like, get somebody else who can do that better than you, and go and thrive in the area that you do. So not to take that too far down the road, because I think everybody gets where we're going with it. I do have this question's not designed to be a curveball. I usually wrap up the interview with this. I have a couple more questions. Do you have a few more minutes?
Absolutely.
Cool. So imagine this. You're the author and protagonist in your own life story, and you get to write the ending. And God willing, you continue to live a long, prosperous life. You're looking back on that. You're reflecting on it. You get to define your legacy. What would that be?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to be known as a disruptor, I guess. We're disrupting a category, we're disrupting an industry just by being a female founder. That's a bit disruptive. We've, done some things in fundraise. I fundraised around while I was pregnant and brought money in. There's, and by disruption, I mean really like paving a path to show others that, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. And something I, like to make sure that people know is like, there is nothing special about me. I didn't have a leg up. I didn't come from money. I didn't have like friends and family that had money. My mom's not someone famous. Like I, came from a small farm town and, I still have a long, long ways to go, hopefully on my journey to success. But if I can do it and if I can be disruptive in these ways, anyone can do it. And that's what I really, the path that I want to pave, whether it is in the food industry, whether it is just being an entrepreneur, whether it's being a female that does things that, not a lot of females have done before. I think being disruptive to show, hey, if this girl who is not important and, had no leg up can do it, literally anyone can do it with, a little bit of work and curiosity.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and I appreciate you opening up on that. It's so true. Like, and first of all, whether you became a successful entrepreneur or not, you're still a beautiful person. Everyone listening to this may not be their trajectory, and I know that you're not speaking to that in particular. But everybody, I just interviewed Dr. Bill Dorfman, and a really cool thing he said. It's actually coming out after we record this. It's going to be coming out like next week. So if someone's watching this, it's already out. What he said is to tell yourself in the morning that you're a 10 out of 10 when you look in the mirror. God made you, or if you believe in the universe, or it's the same for you. Some people believe in kind of both. But whatever it is that you believe in, you're here, you're on earth, you're a 10 out of 10. That's it.
I love it.
You're not a 7 out of 10. You're not
Yeah,
a 2 out of
yeah,
10. And whether or not your mom is famous, your dad's famous, or your uncle handed you this business, if that's the case, cool. You're still a 10 out of
yeah,
10. And
yeah,
if Brooks, your story is that you built it out of this interesting backstory of dairy farmers and your first generation entrepreneur, you handle it as a 10 out of 10 and you shine in your own light. And I think it's really cool that you've taken so many things. I don't know if you thought about it, but I'm glad that we're having this conversation so you can think about how it all kind of came together and built you into this beautiful person that you are today. And you're really inspiring. You inspired me from afar, but a lot of people tuning into this are going to be able to take what they learned and apply it to themselves so then they can go lead the best life in their own story. And I want people to do that. The purpose of this podcast is really to help people level up, but inspire them to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. And your
yeah.
story totally does. I got like goosebumps listening to you.
Thank you. I love that so much, and that's all it takes is some bravery, and that's not all it takes. That's a big thing, but we have one opportunity on this earth potentially.
Yeah.
There's no time to be afraid, and I think if you can push through fear, you can literally do anything.
Yeah. The greatest people who've achieved, massive success, whether that's in sports, business, having a beautiful family. Hey, a high school teacher or whatever school teacher is a success. Like,
Yeah.
success doesn't mean you're a billionaire. It means that you're the greatest at, or you're doing great in what you're called to do in life. And I think a lot of people need to remember that we're not always putting like different things on a pedestal. It's go be you and go do. That's what this says right here. Be great, be grateful is all about just being the greatest at what you're called to do and
Yes.
go do it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't have to start a business it's about what makes you happy. And for me, I go back to that constantly and check in, especially in stressful times. Is this still making me happy? Is this still my purpose? And it is. And I can't imagine doing anything else. And that's, what drives everything forward.
Yeah, it's good for someone to have that assessment because maybe it's not. Maybe you fall out of love with your first business idea and it's cool. Then just pivot or
Yeah.
try something different
Yeah.
and then reconnect the strings again back to your heart. I think that's fine. Like most successful people have, they've tried and failed more than most even thought about an idea. So it's okay to try and fail because you're not really failing unless you stop doing it. Like there's another saying, like you either win or you learn. Because
Yeah.
if you fail and you keep trying and you take what you learned, now you're actually still better off because of the failure because you tried and you learned and you're playing in the sandbox still.
Yeah, that's something that like gives me some peace is that no matter what happens with this business, I have grown so much as a human. I've grown 10 times more than I would have doing anything else in this life. And that's pretty cool and awesome. And that's a win in itself.
Yeah, I could say the same thing. Like, I know I'm not to my end game of where I want to be with Social Chameleon yet. We're still growing. We still have this huge door to kick through to the next level. But yeah, the self-improvement side of who I become has a lot to do with being an entrepreneur because you got to figure it out yourself. You got to read the books. You got to watch the interviews. You got to you get real with yourself. And I think it's a super cool way to learn. Not saying it's for everybody, just like plant-based isn't for everybody, but it's certainly worked for you and I. Like our stories are kind of similar in a sense. So I think that's really cool. What I'd love you to do with the last couple minutes we have is touch on any topic that maybe I didn't bring to the forefront. Is there something you learned in business that you're just like, man, Mike, I want to get this out to your audience right now that we didn't talk about yet?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You covered a lot of great stuff. I would say, I've learned so much also on the fundraising journey, which we didn't talk much about, but being a female in fundraising, I'm sure you've seen the stats. It's like 2% or less, maybe, of VC money goes to female founders, and so that's
I did not know that, and I think in 2022 that's surprising. You would think that paradigm shift has happened already, but that's still the case.
Oh yeah, and try fundraising when you're pregnant. That was a really difficult thing, and it was difficult to realize that, like you said, in 2022, people still have a problem with that.
With the pregnancy thing, is it because they know your time and energy is going to be in other places, so they just think you're not going to be able to give that much effort?
I have no idea I have no idea where their thoughts go. It was really hard. We actually walked away from an investor who tried to like pull some funny stuff when they found out that I was pregnant, which was really heartbreaking because it's like, how does it even matter? Does it matter? I took a short maternity leave. Like, is that what you're worried about? And what I decided is it just comes down to their own experiences. Maybe their mother didn't work, or maybe their sister left her job when she got pregnant. But that's great. And I can totally, I'm so in love with my daughter. I can see how people do that, but has never been my mentality. Running my business makes me a better mother. Being a mother has already made me better at my business. So I think it's just very silly and ignorant if anyone has a problem with a pregnant female founder or a female founder that has kids.
Mic drop moment right there, ladies and gentlemen. It's so true. Being a parent makes you better at business, and being in business taught you things that make you a better parent. And I think that is a great mic drop moment. But it just goes to show, like, when it comes to venture capital or pitching, it's just like in life, you found your partner, your husband. What's your husband's name?
Dennis.
Dennis. Shout out to Dennis. Like, you found your soulmate. But in business, it's the same thing. The partners that are going to be with you for the right reasons, you're going to connect. They're going to know that, hey, this is Brooke. She happens to be pregnant when we met. this isn't going to be a done deal, a dead deal here because she has a different situation. Like, we love this idea. We believe in it. We believe in her. We're investing in her, and she's the right person for this. And that's it. End of story. It doesn't matter that she's pregnant. That's just going to be it's not even a problem really at
Right.
all. But that's just something we'll work with. And the right investor is going to say that to you. The other ones that are living like it's 1980, like, sorry, they're going to be snoozing, and you snooze, you lose. So,
the whole journey, you get different chips on your shoulder, but definitely this last fundraise gave me a few chips on my shoulder that will be the day that we are as successful as we want to be and make our current partners a lot of money. That'll be a day where I remember those conversations and have a good laugh,
I love it. What was your favorite moment so far for Goodmylk? Was there just a thing that you just always comes back to you? Maybe when you're daydreaming here and there, you're like, does it ever come back to you? This like,
Yeah, I mean, I've had some moments where I'm not a big crier, but I have had some moments where I've cried with joy, like, with certain partnerships, or when I first got the first packets that we were going to use for our frozen product, when those first came in the mail, I literally had a team meeting with my team and like cried in the team meeting because I was just like, this is the future we are about to start paving the way for a new future of plant-based milk. And my team thought I was crazy then, especially because I was crying and they'd never seen me cry. But and they were very skeptical on the frozen piece. But obviously, we've seen success and it's gone well. But that was a moment where I just like knew, like I could see the future so clearly, and I just had to get others to see it.
yeah. Yeah. Amen. I know that feeling. This has been so much fun. Hey, let's talk like more than once every 14 years. I would love to stay connected with
Yes,
you.
please.
I remember having so much fun in our college days and all that. But no, this is great. I love to see that you're still on purpose and now you're serving within your purpose. And that's a beautiful thing. That's why I do this podcast, to bring people on who are serving in their purpose so people can think, hey, what can I do to go and do serve in my purpose? And I love that. This has been a ton of fun. You know what to do, everybody. Be great and be grateful. And I am so grateful for you, Brooke. We're going to stay in touch. And guys, if you want to tune in with Brooke personally, her social media, again, is in the show notes. You guys can click on that. Goodmylk is in the show notes. It's all right there for you. Any last words before we get back to our families?
Thank you so much for having me. And I hope if anyone takes something out of this, it is like, just be empowered with your own health and your food choices. You don't have to buy Goodmylk, but understand what it is that you're putting in your body and how it's making you feel. And it is a game changer.
Absolutely. With an exclamation point on the end of that. Thank you so much, Brooke. This was awesome.
Thank you, Mike.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedup. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedup. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at mikeduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCioccio, MikeDiCioccio. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.